Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, filter out the noise, and we'll get straight to the fascinating stuff.
That's the plan.
Today, we're plunging into a world revealed through narrative, specifically excerpts from a novel by Sandra Rodriguez Barron that you brought us.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're going to treat this really rich fictional narrative almost like it's a factual account,
Okay.
pulling out the connections and the insights hidden within.
So what's the mission here?
Our mission is really to uncover how seemingly separate things like marine biology, cutting-edge medical research, deep family history,
Wow. Yeah.
political upheaval, and personal healing, how they all weave together in these pages. It's quite a mix.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
You really can't dive into this source material without starting with this creature. It sounds like something out of a maybe dark nature documentary.
Yeah.
Tropical cone snails. The sources describe them as, well, predators. They hunt other marine life by firing venoms.
Firing them, yeah, like tiny harpoons.
And these venoms can paralyze or even kill in seconds. Some species are apparently so potent they're lethal to a human adult in, what, hours?
Hours, yeah. It's pretty intense stuff. That's a strong starting point.
It really is.
Absolutely. And the source material immediately kind of zooms in on one specific species, the Cotinus furiosus.
The cone of fury. Apt name.
Very apt, right. It's described visually too cone-shaped, maybe the length of an adult's index finger,
Huh?
with a chestnut base and these like splashes of blood-colored markings near the tip, especially when it's polished.
Oh, clearly dangerous.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating here, and what the texts point out, is that historically it wasn't just seen as a threat.
Right.
Monica's great-grandfather, Dr. Rinaldo Marmol, he actually used its venom as a painkiller.
Yeah, think about that. Turning something potentially lethal into a remedy.
Especially for patients who are, wary of modern drugs.
Exactly, modern pharmaceuticals. It speaks to a sort of deep traditional knowledge, maybe. And there are mentions of even more remarkable anecdotal accounts from older indigenous people in El Salvador.
Like what?
Claims that the venom could improve vision or even reduce symptoms of dementia.
Really?
You're-
Vision and dementia.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Marmol, according to his journal notes that are included here, he seems a bit skeptical about the specific claims.
Okay, fair enough.
But the potential for pain relief, that was something he clearly recognized and, well, used.
Which leads us to a really key point in this sort of present day of the novel. Monica, the main character, it seems, believes this specific species, the Conus furiosus, is actually extinct.
Right, like a piece of potent history just gone.
Yeah, loss.
Yet the idea of using cone snail venom for medicine is very much alive in the modern world the novel portrays.
How so?
Well, the source mentions another one, the Conus magus, the magician's cone. That one is being actively studied by biopharmaceutical companies.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Monica and another character, Sylvia, even talk about seeing a 60-minute story on it, so it's out there in the public consciousness.
And here's where the science gets really compelling, and it seems to mirror some of those historical uses you mentioned.
Uh-huh.
The core medicinal property they're exploring is non-otopiate pain relief.
Which is huge.
Huge, right, because it means the body doesn't build up resistance like it does with, say, morphine. And it doesn't cause that mental dullness, that fog.
Yeah, no zombie effect.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But even more incredibly, there's this potential mentioned in the source for it to stimulate damaged nerve cell regeneration.
Wow, regeneration.
So this incredibly dangerous toxin might actually hold a key to healing nerve damage.
Yeah.
It's a profound link between that ancient understanding and cutting-edge modern research.
It really is. And to see how this powerful creature and its potential connect to the bigger story, we need to introduce the key players from these sources.
Right, the people involved.
We should probably start with Monica. She seems to be our central figure.
Okay.
She's a physical therapist specializing in sports injuries, but she has this really unique sensory talent. She can kind of read bodies.
Read bodies. How?
Something she learned from her mother, it says. A kind of deep intuition or sensitivity. And visually, she's noted for her striking green eyes, which she inherited from her American father.
Okay, intriguing.
Yeah.
And her mother, Alma.
Alma, yes. Described very differently. Black irises, reflective, like polished granite, almost impenetrable,
Sounds intense.
And she has this deep, maybe spiritual connection to the ocean. And, as we'll definitely find out, an obsessive drive to find that Cosunus furiosus.
The extinct one.
The one Monica thinks is extinct, yeah. Alma is also portrayed as rebellious, intellectually formidable. Apparently, she even lectured at universities.
Okay, so she's not just about the beach. There's complexity there already.
Absolutely. And contrasting with Alma is Monica's father, Bruce.
The one with the green eyes, like Monica.
Right. He's a journalist, characterized as well-informed, crisply professional. So quite a different vibe from Alma.
You can already sense some dynamics there.
Definitely. Then there's the Borrero family. That's Alma's side, depicted as the absolute elite of Salvadoran society. They own huge plantations, a major dairy plant called Borlac. Big money, big influence.
Got it. Cold money power.
Exactly. And Alma's father, Adolfo Borrero, Monica's grandfather, was a genuinely powerful patriarch. The source even mentions people thought he would have made a great president.
Wow. Okay. So high-stakes family.
Very high stakes. And the setting itself is crucial. El Salvador. The narrative centers heavily on Negrarina, the family estate.
Negrarina.
Yeah, it's sprawling. And specifically a place called Caracol Villa on the property, which becomes really key later on.
Caracol, like the Spanish word for snail or shell.
Exactly. Good catch.
Yeah.
The sources really highlight the stark contrast, between the opulence and power of the Borreros
Right.
and the political turmoil and widespread poverty elsewhere in the country at that time.
That backdrop feels important.
It's woven right in. And finally, in this sort of initial cast, we have Maximiliano Campos.
Max.
Okay, he's Alma's oldest friend from childhood. Son of Francisca, who was the family's really beloved nanny.
Ah, a connection across class lines.
A very strong one. Max is a country doctor, but here's the twist. He's also a leader in El Salvador's communist revolution.
Whoa, okay. Doctor and revolutionary leader. And friends with the daughter of the super elite anti-communist patriarch.
Precisely. You can immediately see the tension that friendship would create, especially with Alma's father, Adolfo.
Yeah, that's guaranteed conflict.
But their bond seems, well, unbreakable despite that huge societal gap.
Okay, so that's the initial setup in El Salvador.
Yeah.
But then the story seems to shift focus.
It does, yeah. It takes an unexpected turn, introducing a new set of characters in a very different situation before looping back. We meet Yvette Lucero,
Yvette.
a woman in a persistent vegetative state, PVS. After a serious accident, her condition is described as severe, a very low score on the Glasgow coma scale.
Meaning?
Meaning deep unconsciousness, basically. No sign of progress for 2 years. It's a really heartbreaking situation.
Absolutely.
And we're introduced to her husband, Will Lucero. He's described as a big guy, muscular, works in finance for his family's company, seems pretty buttoned up.
Right.
But he has this sort of counterpoint to that corporate life, this hidden passion for sailing. It's called his gift of Tuesdays.
His escape, maybe?
Sounds like it, yeah. His
Yeah.
refuge. The source portrays him as initially resistant to, let's say, unconventional ideas, but also showing moments of deep vulnerability about his wife, understandably.
Of course.
Yvette's mother-in-law, Sylvia Montenegro, is also introduced, and she's depicted as absolutely relentless, almost dogged,
In what way?
in her search for any treatment that might help Yvette. She won't give up.
Okay, determined. And this is where Monica, our physical therapist, comes in.
Exactly. This is how Monica enters their lives. Sylvia and Will approach her.
Why her?
They're seeking her unique massage therapy. But interestingly, not for traditional PT or recovery. They describe it almost like pampering, like a spa treatment for Yvette.
Pampering someone in a vegetative state is
Well,
unusual.
It is. And Monica is understandably hesitant. I mean, her specialty is sports injuries. Her schedule is packed.
Right, it's not her usual case.
Not at all. But she's clearly moved by Will's visible pain, his desperation. You see that vulnerability.
Okay, so she takes the case, or considers it.
She considers it. But then comes the critical link back to the cone snails.
Here he comes.
Sylvia reveals she's discovered this clinic in El Salvador, Clinica Caracol, specifically linked to venom treatment.
The snail venom.
Exactly. Sylvia is incredibly excited about it, calling it an exciting new treatment.
Okay, and the connection to Monica. How does Sylvia even know about this clinic?
This is the surprise. For Monica especially, Sylvia says she wouldn't have found this clinic if it wasn't for your daughter, Bruce, meaning Monica.
Oh.
It turns out Sylvia saw Monica's office display, the cone shells.
The ones arranged by potency.
Those ones. And Sylvia remembered Monica talking about their potential medicinal properties at some point. So that display, which seems like just a personal interest for Monica, it inadvertently opened this door to El Salvador and the clinic.
Wow. Talk about unexpected consequences of office decor.
Right. And Will's initial reaction to the idea of taking Yvette to El Salvador? Pure skepticism. Resistance.
Understandable, I guess. It sounds extreme.
He scoffs at it, calls it frightfully expensive. It really highlights the practical and emotional barriers they're up against.
Okay, so the plot thickens significantly. We need to know more about this clinic and Monica's family connection.
Definitely. As we dig deeper into the source material, it becomes clear that Monica's family history with shells is way more than just a hobby. It's deep, ingrained.
The Office collection hinted at that.
Right. Arranged by toxin potency, that's a statement. And her mother, Alma, remember Alma?
The one obsessed with the ocean and the Conus furiosus.
Exactly. Alma has this prized possession, an 80-year-old Conus furiosus specimen. She calls it her Ferrari.
Her Ferrari.
Yeah.
A snail shell.
Yeah. Passed down from her great-grandfather, the Dr. Marmol, who used the venom. It's a direct link to that legacy.
Okay, that's intense. And the clinic Sylvia found. Clinica Caracol.
Get this. It's exactly where you'd expect the connection to land. Negorina,
The family estate?
the Borrero family estate, yeah. Specifically in that abandoned Caracol villa, remember? The Shell Villa.
The one named after shells. It was empty after Doña Magnolia died.
That's the one. And the source reveals that the clinic's venom trials use a synthetic recreation of the Conius furiosus venom.
Synthetic, not the real thing.
Synthetic, yeah. And here's the kicker. It was explicitly inspired by Dr. Marmol's granddaughter,
Wait, Alma.
Alma herself.
Wow. So Alma, who Monica thought was gone or dead, she was the inspiration for this experimental treatment happening on her family's abandoned property.
It's a huge twist, right? And it throws this massive spotlight back onto those complex Borrero family dynamics we touched on.
Yeah, like Alma's strained relationship with her father, Adolfo.
Her defiance in staying friends with Max the revolutionary, the family's intense focus on money and status versus Alma's, well, her intellectual side, her connection to nature.
That Heiress of Water title is mentioned for her.
Right.
Yeah.
That feels significant, doesn't it? Maybe linking her to Negorina's natural legacy, the sea, contrasting with the family's focus on land, plantations, the dairy, wealth.
And all this is happening against that backdrop of El Salvador's civil war.
It's constantly humming underneath. The source describes the reality, guerrilla rebels, military raids, even local families being charged protection money. It wasn't abstract.
And Max Campos, Alma's friend, his role as a leader in the revolution, that's not just backstory.
No, it's absolutely central to the tragedy that unfolds.
We also learn a bit more about Francisca Campos, Max's mother.
Alma and Monica's beloved former nanny, a really trusted figure. She worked at the Borlac dairy plant, the family business.
In Gotera, which is mentioned as a hotbed of conflict.
Exactly, right in the thick of it. And here's a crucial detail that pays off later. Doña Magnolia, Alma's grandmother, left Francisca a substantial sum of money in her will.
Interesting. Money changing hands across those class lines again. That feels like it has to be important.
It proves to have really long-reaching consequences, and this section of the source is where the truly deep, painful secrets start to surface, especially about Alma's disappearance.
Okay, I'm ready.
It recounts this pivotal, horrific incident at a place called Hacienda El Trovador.
El Trovador.
Alma and Max were there, trying to help wounded campesinos, people caught in the fighting.
Oh.
They were ambushed by the military. It was a massacre. Max and others were killed.
Max died.
Max died, and Alma witnessed it all while hiding. Just unimaginable trauma.
God, how did she survive?
Her escape is harrowing. Almost unbelievable. She actually uses that cone shell, maybe the Ferrari, the source isn't explicit, but a cone shell to defend herself against a soldier.
Uses the shell as a weapon.
Seems like it. Then she manages to escape to Honduras with help from Max's friends in a guerrilla camp.
Incredible survival. But that's not the whole story, is it? There's more.
No, because the deepest secret, the one that really defines Monica's pain, is what Alma did next.
Which was?
She faked her own death.
What faked her death?
Yeah. She managed to get word to Francisca, the nanny, that she survived, and she anonymously reported the massacre to a newspaper. But she made a conscious, deliberate choice.
To let her family think she was dead. Her wealthy, powerful family.
Exactly. To sever ties completely, to pursue a life solely focused on research, which she describes later as a kind of anesthesia for the trauma she'd endured.
Anesthesia.
Yeah.
Wow. That's an incredibly drastic decision.
It is, and the impact on Monica is just devastating. She grew up believing her mother was either dead or, maybe worse, had simply abandoned them.
Yeah.
Her reaction when she finally learns, years later, that her mother is alive It's just raw, immediate, full of pain. She calls Alma the most selfish person.
I mean, you can understand that reaction, right? All those years believing.
Totally. It voices that deep, deep feeling of being unloved, abandoned.
And Bruce, the father, what's his role in all this hidden history?
Ah, Bruce. His role adds another layer of tragedy and, frankly, guilt. Monica eventually confides in him about learning Alma survived, about Max, and Bruce makes this stunning admission. He told one person where Alma and Max were going that day.
Yeah.
Doña Magnolia, Alma's grandmother.
He told the grandmother. Why?
He confesses he wonders if that simple act may be fueled by jealousy or anger over Alma's infidelity with Max, which he knew about, if that inadvertently led the military to them. He admits it was a kind of punishment aimed at Alma.
Oh, my God. He thinks he might be responsible for Max's death.
He carries that possibility, that terrible weight. And he admits he kept this from Monica for years, trying to shield her from the truth about his action and its potential horrific consequences.
That is heavy. A massive secret for a father to carry.
Immense. So, shifting back to the clinic, Clinica Caracol, we find out more about who's running it and how they connect to this tangled history.
Right, the clinic inspired by Alma.
The brain behind the operation is revealed to be a Dr. Fernanda Mendez.
Okay, and who is she?
Get this. She is Max Campos's daughter.
Max's daughter, the revolutionary leader who was killed.
His daughter. And Francisca Campos's granddaughter.
The nanny.
The nanny. And her mother is Leticia Ramos, who the source mentions was Max's wife, and had apparently stalked Alma previously out of jealousy.
Wow. So many connections. It's like everyone is tied together.
It really is. So Fernanda's connection to the Borreros comes through her grandmother, Francisca.
How?
Remember that substantial sum of money Doña Magnolia left Francisca in her will.
The money. Yeah.
That money paid for Fernanda's medical school.
Ah. So if the clinic is like Borrero money, indirectly, funding the daughter of the man they probably hated, using research inspired by the woman who defied them.
It's exactly that kind of convergence. The Borrero family's resources, the land, maybe investment meeting Fernanda's medical knowledge, which itself is linked back to her father Max's interest in natural remedies and social change, and inspired by Alma. It's incredibly layered.
And there's another Borrero involved.
Yeah, we're introduced to Marco Borrero. He's implied to be Fernanda's fiancé.
Another Borrero, a cousin of Monica's.
A cousin, yeah. And he's involved in the clinic, even though the source mentions he's lost his professional license for something.
Okay, so what does that signify?
Well, the source points out it kind of echoes that pattern we saw earlier, right? Defiance against the traditional Borrero family expectations and values, like Alma and Max before them, perhaps.
Right.
A new generation challenging the old ways.
Right. History repeating, maybe. So Monica eventually goes to this clinic for Yvette.
Yes. Her experiences there are crucial. She meets Leticia, Max's widow, and Fernanda, his daughter, face to face.
That must be intense.
Immediately impactful, because Monica recognizes Fernanda's eyes, striking pumpkin-colored eyes, just like Max's.
Whoa, a direct physical link to the past.
Exactly. She's also struck by the physical setup of the clinic itself. She specifically mentions this, like, cement sunning platform where they put the comatose patients.
Just out in the sun?
Seems so. Despite her discomfort with the whole setup and it being so far from her usual specialty, she agrees to massage Yvette, and other patients too. Partly, it seems, to try and ease the tension between Will and Sylvia, Yvette's husband and mother-in-law. They're clearly clashing over this whole thing.
Okay, acting as a mediator almost.
A reluctant one, maybe. But the experience of massaging Yvette is profoundly unnerving for Monica.
How so?
The source describes Yvette's irregular breathing, her skin feeling ashy, these small, almost imperceptible hand motions. And it triggers something deep in Monica, almost instinctual memories. It pulls her right back to Negorina, back to her childhood and her mother Alma's teaching.
The reading bodies thing.
Exactly. About reading bodies, attuning your senses, silencing your own mind to just feel what the other body is communicating. It's like this unique talent Alma cultivated in her is being reawakened by this experience.
So amidst all this unraveling of family secrets and, the political shadows, the narrative also dives into the personal journeys.
Absolutely. They run parallel and are just as important. Monica's journey is very much one of discovery, right? Confronting this painful history she's inherited.
She starts digging.
She actively investigates, seeks out the difficult truth, especially from Francisca, the former nanny.
Does Francisca tell her?
Yes. Francisca finally tells her about Alma surviving the massacre and the wrenching reasons why she chose to disappear. to fake her death.
That must have been an incredibly difficult conversation.
You imagine so.
Yeah.
And Monica also confronts her uncle, Jorge Borrero. He's kind of the family patriarch now.
What does she want from him?
Answers. She challenges him about the family's divisiveness, about her feeling excluded after her mother supposedly died, questioning why money always seemed more important than her, than family connection.
Does he respond?
She pushes him. And Jorge eventually admits something hidden, that Adolfo, his father, the great patriarch, actually left the family in significant debt. It reveals another layer beneath that facade of untouchable power and wealth.
Ah, so they weren't as secure as they seemed. Interesting.
Meanwhile, the source gives us these fascinating, almost mystical glimpses into Yvette's internal experience.
Inside the coma.
Yeah. Suggesting a surprising level of consciousness, despite the vegetative state diagnosis. She perceives sensory details, smells, tastes, sounds. She's struggling internally for movement.
Wow.
She finds these fragmented memories, an aquarium, a man's leg, a rose garden. Then they burst into new, vivid images. And critically, she starts to understand this pull from the sea, its symbolic role in reclaiming what's, well, no longer functional.
See again. That theme keeps recurring.
It's central. And Will's personal struggle runs parallel to all this. He's carrying this huge financial burden of Yvette's constant expensive care.
Right, the clinic wasn't cheap.
Not at all. And he's wrestling with his deep distrust of this experimental clinic versus Sylvia's unwavering determination to try anything.
A tough spot.
And tangled up in all of that are his evolving feelings for Monica.
Ah, I sense that might be coming.
The source describes his feelings for her growing exponentially, filling him with this really complex mix of hope, strength, and dread.
Dread? Why dread?
Because of the impossible situation, right? He's married to Yvette, who is technically still alive. His feelings for Monica create this immense conflict.
Yeah, ethically impossible.
And that symbolic role of the sea, of nature. It runs like a current through the whole narrative. It's more than just a setting.
How is it presented?
It's discussed almost as a character itself, a source of spiritual connection, maybe? A powerful force that reclaims matter, makes things whole again in its own way.
Like with Yvette feeling its pull.
Exactly. And Monica feels it too, deeply. On Niggerina Beach, she senses the waves somehow remembered her. And Yvette, in her state, perceives the sea sounds almost like instructions guiding her. It's this powerful, ever-present, almost sentient force in the story.
Okay, so all this builds towards what happens at the clinic with Yvette.
It builds towards a climax, yes. Yvette's death at the clinic.
She dies there.
She does. The source provides the official cause, a pulmonary infection, which is, sadly, a common complication in her condition.
Right. Medically plausible.
But the narrative contrasts this clinical reality with the description of Yvette's internal journey. It's portrayed as her being guided by the sea, willingly embracing death.
Willingly?
Yeah, seeing it not as an end, but as a release, emerging into something immense, something whole.
Wow.
There's this poignant detail. A nurse adjusts her bed so she can watch a TV show about hurricanes. While Yvette, internally, in Spanish, was apparently requesting to be pushed closer to the sea. It's quite a contrast.
It really is. What happens immediately after?
Oh, comforting the bereaved, naturally. Will and Sylvia. And Bruce's friend, a woman named Claudia, steps in. She seems to be focused on ensuring some accountability
For the clinic.
for Dr. Mendez, Fernanda, and the Borrero investors involved. But there's also this quiet recognition of the difficult truth, the futility, maybe, of trying to bring Yvette back from the state she was in.
A sad acceptance.
And then comes the moment we've kind of been waiting for. The long-awaited, deeply charged confrontation.
Alma arrives.
Alma arrives and meets with Monica and Bruce.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Face to face after all those years.
Exactly. Alma tries to explain her actions. She talks about the trauma of the massacre, her genuine belief back then that Monica would be better off just with Bruce. Her need for research as that emotional anesthesia and this feeling that after faking her death, she'd sort of lost the right to ever return.
How does Monica react?
Raw. Understandable. She repeats that earlier feeling, calling Alma the most selfish person, just articulating years of profound pain, feeling unloved, abandoned.
And Bruce, what does he say?
Bruce reacts too. He highlights the bitter irony, doesn't he? That Alma survived when so many others, like Max, died.
Yeah.
And he confronts her directly, blaming her for potentially triggering the events at El Trovador in the first place by telling him she was going there with Max, the information he then passed to Doña Magnolia.
So, laying some of the blame back on her.
Yeah, it's complex. Pain and blame flying in multiple directions.
Is there any hope for them? Any reconciliation?
Despite the immense pain, the source does hint at attempts, a possible path forward. Alma expresses remorse, genuine remorse it seems, for the pain she caused.
And Bruce?
Bruce, while clearly still hurt, sets conditions for her reentry into their lives. He tells her she has to stop hiding, basically. Come out from under your rock.
Tough love.
Seems like it. And Alma appears willing to embrace honesty, to seek this fragile second chance. It suggests a possibility, maybe, of repairing those broken family ties.
Okay, so as things wrap up, what are the concrete outcomes? Where do things land?
The source gives us some practical results. Monica is apparently set to inherit a significant portion of the Borrero estate, based on the original will, before everything went sideways.
What did she get?
1/3 of the Borlaug dairy, the family house in San Salvador, and Caracol Villa itself, the clinic location.
Wow, that's substantial. What about the clinic people?
Fernanda Mendez and Marco Borrero, the fiancé cousin, they lose their professional licenses. Consequences for the clinic's operation and Yvette's death, presumably.
Okay. And Monica's personal journey, where does she end up?
She reaches this point of having confronted the past, finding the difficult truth about her mother, and importantly, deciding she can move forward without needing validation or inclusion from that wider Borrero family structure that caused so much pain.
She finds her own path.
Seems so. She also makes a clear decision about her relationship back home with a guy named Kevin, recognizes it wasn't leading anywhere meaningful for her.
Right. Closing doors. What about Will?
Her relationship with Will. It remains complex, obviously, but deeply significant. Their connection grew, built on that shared vulnerability, that intense experience around Yvette.
But they can't be together.
Despite the undeniable attachment they feel, they recognize the impossible ethics. Yvette's memory, his marriage. They decide they can't pursue a romantic relationship.
We couldn't do that to Yvette.
Exactly. They choose to remain friends. But the source makes it really clear Will has left a lasting mark on Monica. There's this phrase, she thinks, sabor a mí.
A taste of me. Like he's part of her now.
Yeah. A profound, unfulfillable connection.
So ultimately, the narrative suggests Monica receives these significant, maybe complicated gifts, you could say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. There's the possibility of love, the potential connection with Will, even if unfulfilled, maybe a rediscovered, complex connection with Alma.
Okay.
There's the unexpected financial security from the inheritance.
Right. The money and property.
And perhaps most importantly, this rare spiritual, intellectual inheritance. Not just the tangible stuff, but the resilience she's gained, her unique talent honed by Alma, that deeper connection to nature, to the sea, and its cyclical lessons of loss and maybe renewal.
A lot to inherit.
It really is.
Yeah.
So after diving into all this, from the deadly beauty of cone snails and ancient remedies, through this sprawling family saga, political turmoil, deep secrets, intense personal journeys, what does it all kind of add up to?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
The source material presents this really rich interplay, doesn't it? Between destiny and choice, between hard science and something more spiritual, between the heavy weight of the past and the possibility of healing of a future.
And that idea about the sea.
Right. If, as the source seems to suggest through Yvette's experience, through Alma's underlying philosophy, if the sea reclaims matter that is no longer functional to somehow make it whole again, well, this raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider.
Okay.
What does that powerful idea imply about the cycles of healing and transformation in our own lives, especially after, traumatic events or periods where we feel stuck, stagnant? How does nature's cycle reflect our own potential for renewal?
That's definitely something to think about. We've journeyed through a remarkable, multi-layered world today, all drawn directly from the source material you provided.
It's truly fascinating how all these threads, the science, the history, the personal pain, the political backdrop, how they weave together into such a compelling narrative tapestry in these excerpts.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.